Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. So I'm farming away for clan versus clan. We're doing Spider, the best place to get points. Our clan is going for a big win this time, and if you're in the same boat, you're probably seeing a screen like this with RSL Helper running. But alongside that, I've been looking at the new faction, I've been looking at the new champions, and I'm here today to kind of review the 6 new epic champions and the new rare that is going to be part of that faction. I'm assuming the rare is what we're going to get for the fusion, obviously being a traditional fusion, and by now we know that the epic is going to be 4 of the Orn epics, the really strong epic we're going to cover in this video. So we're going to cover both the fusion epic and the fusion rare and all of the Sylvan Watcher epics in this video. So you can come to hellhades.com. You know, if you caught my video yesterday, we went through all the legendary champions and also the fusion and the 2 other champions they added into the game. We've listed all the different champions here. We've got some initial ratings out there, although it is fluid at the moment. They are changing based on how we've sort of looked at it, how Hellhades is testing it on the test server, different opinions from different creators as well. We're keeping an eye on kind of like ideas that people are coming up with. We're generating our own ideas as well. We've got some very cool clan boss ideas that we're looking at specifically with White Dryad Nia and a couple of other of these champions. So you can come to the website, you can have a look on the ratings, you can have a look for yourself, and you can make your own judgment. Keep in mind that our ratings are an opinion. It is based on what Hellhades thinks, it's based on what sort of my opinions and the team's opinions as well, and how we think things work together, but it's not an exact science. I will in this video put a timestamp at the bottom for every single champion if you want to jump ahead and see which champion and kind of look at the review specifically for each champion. So we've got 6 epic champions in this faction. We have got Cormac the Highpeak, Duedan the Runic, Mistrider Daithi, Myciliac Priest Orn, which will be the fusion epic, Ruella, and then White Dryad Nia. These champions are very good in my opinion. And we've also got Pathfinder Kate down here as the singular soul rare on her own, doing her own thing. So let's go through and look at the first champion here. So we've got Cormac the Highpeak, pretty badass looking champion to be fair, like really cool, you know, druidic kind of art to it. I know some people have complained about having another elf faction, but to be honest, I find this faction more druidic and more like Beast Walkers in Warhammer or anything like that sort of things. It feels a bit more like that, more earthy, more natural, rather than just purely elven. However, we've got Cormac here, looks really cool, about 94 base speed, is pretty slow, high base attack. He's an epic attack champion. He is a bit squishy, so hopefully he's going to do some damage based on these numbers. So what have we got? He is attacks one enemy, decreases the speed by, he places a decreased speed for a 50% chance, so that's a 50-50, that's not so bad. And then he's got an A2, attacks one enemy before attacking, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense on the target, which is bucked to 100%, so it's a 3-turn decreased defense, really good. And then we've got tempo shift, places an increased accuracy and increased crit rate on himself, that's a 4-turn cooldown, and then grants an extra turn. He doesn't require as much accuracy to apply decreased defense and speed, because he provides his own buff. That's quite cool. He doesn't really give himself attack buff, which is a bit disappointing. But that is like effectively a 3-turn cooldown because he gets an extra turn. So that's up all the time. So he's always got the accuracy and crit rate buff, which means you can run him at 70%. Then he does decreased defense and decreased speed. So that's quite good for single target bosses, although he is quite squishy. 826 defense and 94 speed. He's not the fastest champion in the world. He's not the tankiest champion in the world. Perhaps these multipliers will hit really hard. We don't know. I don't have access to the test server. I cannot test it myself. So we'll have to wait until tomorrow when the actual fusion goes live and all these champions come into the game. But it looks a bit basic, this champion. You know, if you need a decreased defense champion, great. It's a 3-turn, 100% chance on a 2-turn cooldown. He is magic affinity, so if you need a magic affinity decreased defense champion, it's great. We've kind of rated him at 3-star, so we've got him at like 4-star for clan boss because he does do decreased defense with some self buffs. Iron Twins is a decreased speed with decreased defense. You don't really necessarily want the damage, but it's an option. And then he's kind of like an all-round. He's pretty good for he's got really good debuffs for the right bosses, especially with the increased accuracy buff requiring less accuracy to actually get there. You could probably put that into more defensive stats. I think he's an okay epic. Next up, we've got Duedan the Runic, and this guy looks freaking awesome. Look at him. He's like a golem, kind of spirit returning from the dead. Looks amazing. We've got a speed buff of 97 speed base, so that's not too bad. It's okay. Defensive of 1156 and 19,000 HP. He is HP base, so that's a pretty good base set of stats there. He's going to be easy to keep alive, and he's relatively fast. What does Duedan the Runic do? Well, Duedan the Runic is the other champion that has this new taunt buff. If you didn't catch my video yesterday, the taunt TLDR, it is a buff type provoke, but it doesn't stop the enemy using their active abilities, which means that you can't really replace provoke with taunt for many things. However, I have been told since then that taunt will force the clan boss stun. It will force targeted abilities like the Head of Suffering's A3, but if the abilities have like a pre-existing kind of targeting, so Mischief, for example, targets the highest buffs, I think it will override that. So I think, you know, it's an interesting buff, but it's just on so few champions that it's really not something that I would be stressing about right now if I was looking at it. What else does this guy do? So he attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance, buck to 60% of removing one random debuff from all allies. That's actually quite strong for an A1. Anytime he attacks, counterattack, revenge, any of these things, ally attack, he's got a chance to remove a buff constantly. Now, you couldn't use it in any sort of clan boss speed tunes because it's not 100%, right? And you don't want to take the wrong buff at the wrong time. But in terms of like sort of general PvE, keeping debuffs off you, Hydra, if you get a bunch of things, it could be actually quite powerful. Then we get an AoE ability. It's a 4-turn cooldown, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 15% of his HP. His HP being good because he's HP based, it's going to be a stronger shield. Then he increases the duration of all ally buffs on all allies for 1 turn. Now this would have been amazing, but it's a 4-turn cooldown. It's really hard to do a tune that with a 4-turn cooldown. You know, people like Godseeker, Ranieri, Krisk, Sandlash Survivor, they're all champions that do it on a 3-turn cooldown, which means you can enable a 2-1 with it. But on a 4-turn cooldown, you have a lot more problems. So that's going to take a lot of speed tuning, but potentially we might find some clan boss teams with this guy in because, of course, he can taunt. So he can force the clan boss to attack him, which could solve a lot of problems for many budget teams or many different scenarios. He also places a strengthen and a counterattack on himself on a 3-turn cooldown. Now he only places a taunt for 1 turn, so he'd have to go just before the clan boss stunned, and he couldn't take another turn, so you've got to tune it correctly. The counterattack is nice because obviously he's going to counterattack with the A1. So the concept of this champion, you A3 to place counterattack. When you get attacked, then he starts cleansing buffs, at the same time increasing all of your buffs. So you just can see like he keeps your team clean, buffed up, and going and healthy. Really good general base set, but I think some of the issues with this champion is going to be the 4-turn cooldown, and also the A1 is not 100%. So there's certain scenarios where you need guarantees. He's not going to be able to provide that. Whether or not this taunt actually makes him really strong, we'll have to see. You know, we don't know what taunt will do to the arena meta. Will it have any impact at all? But it could be quite an interesting thing to put into an arena meta if you can protect this counterattack. So if he's in a protection set, then potentially this counterattack could be quite strong. That's Duedan the Runic. I think he has some place in clan boss. I just think he's going to be very difficult to speed tune around this 4-turn cooldown. But he is cool that he's a taunt champion. We've kind of got him pretty high up for sort of the debuff style bosses like Frost Spider, Nether Spider. You know, getting rid of those poisons as they come up, getting rid of those frosts, the deflections back. Eternal Dragon is a pretty good option as well. A1 just to keep your team cleansed, get rid of anything that is on your team. Scarabee is pretty good for because he does a shield, although you need to make sure you can somehow extend that shield. It's not ideal. And probably arena defense, he'll have maybe some usage if taunt does work quite well. So that's how we would rate him. 3-star. He's a little bit better than Cormac in my opinion, but I don't know how taunt is going to sit in the game yet until I've had a chance to play it myself. Next up, we've got Mistrider Daithi. Now, this is pretty much if you have met William Wallace in a street alongside Legolas, then this is what you would get in a film, I think, if they ever did like a merge crossover. He is an attack-based epic. He does, 97 base speed, 1,376 attack, so it's a pretty average kind of base stats there, nothing crazy. What does this kit do? He attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of removing one random buff from the target, okay? Has a 10% chance of granting an extra turn. Now, I despise these extra turn mechanics that are not guaranteed or a really low chance because you can't use them in speed tunes in the clan boss. And if you're relying on a specific setup for your team, it can throw it out. He can outrun his buffs. It can be annoying. If you don't care about that, then actually they're quite good. Then we get the A2. It's a 4-turn cooldown, has a 100% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense. And if he then places decreased defense on every target, he will get an extra turn. Okay, so we've got another extra turn. So I can see this is going to be a bit like a Whispered style champion where he's going to take lots of extra turns. That is 100% chance on a 4-turn cooldown. And then we have Hunt the Mists down here. Place an increased attack and an increased accuracy. So unlike Cormac, we're actually getting the attack buff here, which is important. And he's also getting the accuracy buff because obviously his A1 and his A2 is going to require accuracy. So the biggest problem when you're building a damage dealer is you need accuracy invested if they need to do the debuffs, and that's taking away sort of your potential of damage. Well, this champion is going to reduce that by half because you need half the amount of accuracy. You may even get away with not even having any accuracy in your build at all because he's got an accuracy aura, accuracy great hall, accuracy amulets. When you sort of layer these things, you can probably cut out a lot of requirements. You probably don't need to run an accuracy banner. So he places the buffs and then he places them for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Then he gets an extra turn. So this is essentially the same thing as Cormac, but we got the attack buff instead of the crit rate buff. The way you would set this champion up, he comes in, he A3s, he gives himself the buffs. He gets an extra turn. Then he A2s, he applies decreased defense. So long as you don't get 3%ed or get blocked, he'll get an extra turn. Then he's going to A1, and then there's a chance he could get an extra turn. If you run him in Relentless, he could get an extra turn. And then he's back round to the A3, which gives him an extra turn. And you can see where this kind of Whisper style mechanic could go, where it's just like turn after turn after turn after turn. Whether or not it's going to hit hard enough, whether or not it's going to be actually useful, it's hard to tell. But it is an AoE decreased defense. He does have a lot of extra turn mechanics. It's just going to be very difficult to tune into any clan boss team that can't support Relentless, which is most of the sort of top end teams with Demitha these days. Well, we've put him as a 3.5. This is under the assumption, I think, that he's going to hit reasonably hard. You could use him potentially an arena attack, although it's not really great. It is an AoE. If the AoE is strong enough, paired with a single target extra turn, there's potential that you could kind of deal with the issues. But as an epic, it's unlikely he's going to be really strong hard hitting. Clan boss, decreased defense, extra turns. If you can speed tune it, it would be pretty good. Same as Hydra, AoE decreased defense, lots of extra turns. Bosses in Doom Tower, probably not so much, but you know, Spider could be a good option if you're just early game Spider nuking. So I think he's a better version of Cormac. Nothing probably too crazy. You probably will want him in Faction Wars more than anything else because he is the one champion here that's got AoE decreased defense, and that will help you when the Faction War comes out in like 3 to 6 months time. So that's Mistrider Daithi. Again, not a crazy epic, but still a good epic. Now we get to like the crazy epics. Myciliac Priest Orn. It's got a base speed of 95, base defense of 1189, and a base HP of 20,000. That's very high. He is HP based, which is great. Means he's going to be very easy to keep alive. Next up, let's have a look at his skills. Attacks one enemy 2 times on the A1. Each hit has a 40% chance of placing a poison. That's a lot of poisons. That's going to be at least 1 probably on average. That's not too bad. Then we've got Erupting Growths. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 75% chance of instantly activating 1 poison. So we get poison activation on each hit on 100% chance. So that's basically kind of the same thing as Venom Mage, but a guaranteed to do it. Venom Mage does it on an A1 with not a guarantee. He's going to do it on an A2 guaranteed on a 3-turn cooldown. And then we get the Colony Expands. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing 2 poisons, 5%, and poison sensitivity. He also heals himself for 5% of the max HP for each poison placed by the skill. So it's a 10% HP heal. I don't really know why we need the condition there, because as long as he places the poisons, he's always going to get 10% HP. And that is also on a 3-turn cooldown, 100% chance. And then we get Mycelium. Whenever a poison debuff is activated on an enemy, increases this champion's HP and defense by 5%. Stacks up to 25%. So this guy is basically Uragrim 2.0, but a tankier version of Uragrim, because this is going to give him a lots of base stats, 25% extra HP. You know, that's like, if say like he's running at 60,000 HP, if he gets 25% extra HP, that's what? Basic math in the top of my head. So like 20,000 HP, give or take, maybe 15,000 HP. That's quite a lot of extra raw HP he's going to get. So you can build him with less gear intensive, because he only requires basically some champions to take a turn. As long as he doesn't get 1 shot, he's fine. He's going to pump out poisons like nobody's business and activate them, which should speed up the fight a little bit more than someone like Uragrim or someone like Frozen Banshee who can't activate the poisons. He is Spirit Affinity, so that's something you need to keep in mind of. Some bosses are not, like Ice Golem 25 is magic, so he won't really be good for 25, but for Dragon, he'll be pretty good. Now, I have seen on Hellhades test stream this champion, and it was incredibly fast in Dragon. It was really fast. It did it in like under 2 minutes on his own as a solo champion. This guy, if you don't have a very fast Dragon team, will be worth picking up. He is the fusion epic. Of all the epics they could have picked, this one I think is one of the best ones for them to pick. We've got him basically rated as 5 out of 5 for Dragon, 5 out of 5 for Ice Golem. Not so much for Fire Knight. He does hit lots of times, but the Fire Knight is never taken a turn. You could activate it a little bit, but you generally don't have space in your team for a Poisoner and Fire Knight. Spider obviously poisons is rubbish, so that's a low rating. And Twins, obviously poison activation will activate its passive, so it's not that ideal. Then we get some key areas here. Clan Boss, he's going to be a monster Clan Boss Poisoner. 100% would be used in Clan Boss. And Doom Tower Waves, he will help clear the waves because obviously high defense, high HP targets benefit from poison debuffs more than anything else. So we've got him as 4-star. We've got him as an Ice Golem and Dragon God. He will be a champion that can solo as good as Bad El Khazar. That is Myciliac Priest Orn. I think it actually is quite insane. If you can pick up a duplicate of this champion in the fusion if you're going for it, or if you're not going for the fusion, this champion is worth picking up from one of the events. And to some extent, for some accounts, it may be even better than the fusion itself. Next up, we've got kind of my second favorite epic of the bunch here, Ruella. Now, I know probably a lot of people are going to say, why? You're crazy. It's not that good. I think this champion is actually legitimately a top tier epic for top teams in certain areas. I think she could really overtake some Void legendaries in terms of her abilities here. I think this champion is insane. And the reason why, it's got a base speed of 112. That is tied with the highest epic base speed in this game. Golden Reaper is the other one that does this. This champion is tied with Golden Reaper. Incredible base speed. That means you can build her to go really fast in some comps in Clan Boss or other things without struggling to get her there. Epics typically have a lower base speed, which is why people like sort of Demither at 102 to really kind of push her to high speeds is quite tough. You can sacrifice damage because she doesn't hit that hard, but it's still a lot harder than someone like a Duchess or a Mithrala or a Siphi who have like 110 plus. She's also got about 1,376 attack. That's about average, and 15k HP and 870 defense. She is a bit squishy, but you can sacrifice some speed. You would prefer to have her in an unkillable Clan Boss than a traditional Clan Boss, but that doesn't mean you can't use her. And we got about 50% crit damage, which kind of punishes her damage a little bit. She's like 13% lower than what she should be. So why do I think she is so good? Her A1 attacks one enemy 3 times. Each critical hit has 100% when booked of stealing 5% of the target's turn meter. So that instantly screams Fire Knight triple hitter. Perfect. But it also steals turn meter, which is different to dropping turn meter. That's effectively a 30% net because you steal 15% and you drop 15% at the same time. So she's gaining 15%, the enemy's losing 15%, you're in a net 30% positive. It's going to keep her going really fast. And remember, she's got 112 base speed. So she's going to be flying through these abilities really quickly. Then we've got the A2, no respite, attacks one enemy 3 times. You see why I'm saying Fire Knight crazy. Fire Knight's insane already. Each hit has a 50% chance, books to 75, of placing a 60% decreased defense, a 25% weaken, and a 30% decreased speed. Now you might be thinking, oh, well that's pretty rubbish. That's like Cantress A2, where she can place 6 different debuffs, but it's so RNG. She tries to place the same one twice. You may only get 1 out in 1 rotation. Well, the difference here is each hit has a chance to place all debuffs, which means that in all scenarios, even if this was unbooked at 50%, it's almost impossible to not have all 3 debuffs up when you use this ability, unless you 3% and have incredibly bad luck, because each hit has a 50% chance to place all 3. Now you can 3% one of the debuffs on placement, but then the next hit has a chance to replace that debuff. So you're going to get these debuffs out pretty much all the time, 100% uptime, even on negative affinity. I think this is so good. You can triple weak hit. That's really bad RNG. But as long as you're running 2-1, this is going to be up all the time. I know it's a 4-turn cooldown, and I've heard some criticisms around 4 turns a bit awkward to speed tune. This is going to be fine, I think, in most scenarios. Unless you get severe bad luck, it's going to be perfect. The debuffs she's placing are the best debuffs you could possibly have for killing bosses. Decreased defense, drops the defense, awesome. Weaken, 25% more damage. Decreased speed, if the boss can be slowed down, decreased speed is normally the way you do it. If you're running this in Iron Twins, perfect. You know, if you're not running a Geomancer team or you're not running this, it's perfect to run that kind of ability here. You place decreased speed, amazing. If you want to do it in sort of any of the Doom Tower bosses, perfect. Clan boss, you're getting the 2 priority debuffs. Okay, decreased speed and stealing turn meter doesn't work, but it doesn't matter because she's hitting 3 times on both abilities. You can run Giant Slayer. And when we look at her A3, you'll see how much more she could be used in clan boss speed tuning. So those are the 2 attacks. She basically hits 3 times on both. She's perfect for Fire Knight. She's perfect for any sort of boss killing. Then we get Time Defensive, a 3-turn cooldown. Fills the turn meters of all allies by 20% and places a 30% increased crit rate buff on all allies for 2 turns. That's a really powerful ability. In the early to mid game, having a 3-turn cooldown on a champion with 112 base speed, when you lack gear normally for speed, this is insane. 112 base speed means you're going to get much more value out of your speed artifact set. So if you have less speed substats but 3 speed sets, you're going to be going really fast. Then you can open with this fill 20% and give everyone crit rate, which means your nukers don't need as much stats. For an early game account, that ability is great. For a late game account, if I'm in Fire Knight, I'm boosting all of my team. Now my Allure can run even less crit rate. Normally people will run Allure around about 85% because she has strong affinity for stage 25. Well, you can run it now 30% less. And hey, why not throw in a crit rate aura as well, like someone like Ruella? Now she can run even less. You could be running an Allure with like 30% crit rate or 40% crit rate with this ability. Absolutely insane. And I think for Clan Boss, it's a potential option to look at substituting out people like Deacon or Seeker. It's very hard because they do an extra turn mechanic and it will require a lot of speed tuning, but I think she can be used in Clan Boss considering she brings all the debuffs you need to enable your unkillable team to do damage. It's very rare to find a champion that boosts turn meter and gives you crit rate and gives you decreased defense and gives you weaken. It's a bit like an epic Bellinor in that sense. She's going to enable the team to do more damage. You also get increased ally accuracy in dungeons by 40, so that helps you with the stat burdens earlier on in the game. As an early game champion, this champion is insane. As a mid game, I think it's insane. I think this champion can out damage Crutraxa for Fire Knight. And I think because of the turn meter capabilities here, it opens the question now. We have champions like Halsring, we have champions like Coldheart, we have champions that do a lot of turn meter stealing like Gomlock. There is possibilities that you can run extremely fast Fire Knight teams without Allure. I've already seen record-breaking teams that run Halsring, Coldheart that don't have an Allure. I think this is the same thing here. I think this champion can be used to replace some champions. If I get hold of this epic, I'm instantly replacing my Crutraxa in my Fire Knight team with this champion because I think it's stronger. So what have we rated the champion? I've got it rated here on the website from Hellhades. We've been talking about it. We've rated her at 4.5 initially, purely because of her natural progression of usage throughout the game and the fact that she's a god in Fire Knight even in the late game. Iron Twin, she gives you the decreased speed early on if you're struggling. Against bosses, she's going to be really good to target. There'll be some bosses she's not so great at, purely because she's all single target, right? So you've got to keep that in mind. She is single target. There's no AoE in there. She wouldn't be very good in the arena. No AoE, no real defensive capabilities. But in PvE kind of dungeon boss killing, I think she's exceptional. I'm most excited about this champion and the next epic champion, which we're going to look at here. So we've got the last epic is White Dryad Nia. Someone turned up the brightness on her face a little bit too much. They need to probably turn that down. White Dryad Nia is a very unique champion. Defense-based epic. 1277 base defense is pretty good. Really high base HP for a defense champion at 20k, so going to be really easy to keep alive. 98 base speed and 45 resist. What makes White Dryad Nia special is her A2. So on an A1, she's got an AoE A1. She places decreased speed on a, 50% chance. So if we think the fusion that's going to be coming tomorrow, Morrigan, is a single target, 70% chance, this champion is an AoE 50% chance. It's a better ability. The A2 is what makes her extremely interesting. On a 3-turn cooldown, she removes all debuffs from a target ally, then heals them for 40% of their max HP. If the target of this skill is not this champion, it decreases the cooldown of all of the target skills by 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. That is essentially a single target renegade on a 3-turn cooldown. And I know that this ability can also be reduced by other skill cooldown reducers like Yumiko. So this could be incredibly frustrating in Arena. You could run Nia, Yumiko. In Arena, Nia resets Yumiko and Yumiko resets Nia and Nia resets Yumiko. You can see how it could become obnoxious. In Clan Boss, you could pick a specific target that you want and basically reset their cooldown to get that ability up quicker. Can we get more than one Seeker out? Can we get more than one Deacon out? Can we get these kind of weird setups going? The targeting seems to be, from what Hellhades was sort of describing to me from the test server and his different tests and when we've watched it, he is basically saying she should target the team order in a neutral state. So if someone's dying, she'll pick that target. If someone's got debuffs, she'll pick that target. But if everyone is 100% health and everyone has not got debuffs, she will pick the leader in most scenarios. Unless she's the leader, then she'll pick herself. So you can guide this ability on auto a little bit. It will be a bit difficult in traditional teams, but unkillable, where you're maybe in a block damage team, this ability could be game-changing. The opportunities for creating new, complicated, but easy to use once you've got the numbers, sort of creative clan boss teams is massive with this champion. I'm really excited, and I hope I get hold of this champion to really make some crazy clan boss teams. I know Hellhades is working on some. So that's the A2. That's what makes her unique, but she's also an ally protector. She places an ally protection buff on all allies except herself for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown, and she places a weak form strengthen. So, okay, weak strengthen is not terrible. It's not the best, but it's okay. But that's a 3-turn cooldown, 2-turn ally protection, which is generally what you need for clan boss. If you pull this champion early, it's amazing. You know, that's really going to help your clan boss team. It does kind of air her kit a bit more towards a traditional clan boss team, but you could easily just turn this off in an unkillable team and make her run A2, A1, A1, A2, A1, A1 over and over again and get more hits out. We also have quite a cool passive on her here. Whenever this champion is healed, heals each ally except this champion by 20% of that heal. So she takes 100%, then she kind of like does an opposite of Farrak in the Fat, where Farrak in the Fat kind of like transfers 20% of the damage he takes across. She's going to just like heal everyone for 20% of the heal she just got. So if you put her in a Guardian set, that means every time she takes a turn, the entire team gets 2% healing back. And obviously it's based on her healing, so it'll be 2% of her HP, which actually could be a lot more than 2% on your allies. So that's a really powerful passive to help keep your team healing. In arena defense, it could be quite obnoxious when paired with some new champions like Elva. I was watching Deadwood last night on his stream. He had Cobra on the stream. Go check him out on Twitch. They were messing around with different things, and I think Deadwood had this like Elva Nia combo, and it looked really creative. I think there's a lot of opportunity to explore that, where you could use her on arena defense. So in terms of blessings here, if you wanted to go defensive in a clan boss team, Faultless Defense is really good for affinity clan boss. It reduces your incoming damage by a lot on a traditional team. If you want to go tank, Heavencast is pretty good for her, right? Because she only has a single debuff and it's on an A1. It's one of those scenarios where Heavencast, a bit like Seeker on the A1 with Provoke, is actually quite good because it's the only place where she's going to do a debuff. So therefore, you don't really want to run much accuracy. Well, Heavencast will help reduce that accuracy right down because it basically makes your A1 debuffs require a lot less resistance as you climb up the awakening levels. So we've got this champion rated at a 4-star. I think she's a clan boss queen, purely as an ally protector. I think there's so many different creative speed tunes you're going to see. Hydra, she could be extremely good. You put the leader in the Hydra team and then just keep resetting their abilities a bit like Shamael. It could be absolutely bonkers. Iron Twins, AoE decrease speed is good for that. AoE decrease speed in Hydra is good. I think this champion is game-changing. I can't speak highly enough about the last 2 champions. I think they are game-changing potentially. And finally, let's take a look at Pathfinder Kate. I mean, it's a rare champion, so for a lot of mid to late endgame champ players, this champion is probably not going to be much use. You'll be using it to make the fusion, I would imagine. We've got a base speed of 95 and a base attack of 1288. That's pretty average for rares. There may be some use in some secret rooms. It depends what her kit looks like. I haven't really given much thought here. So we've got Dragon Line attacks one enemy, has a 35% chance to place a block buffs for 2 turns on a single target. Okay, that's not terrible. Attacks all enemies, has a 30% buck to 50% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random skill on each target by 2 turns. Places a perfect veil in this champion for 1 turn whenever they kill an enemy. So it's actually not a terrible kit here. It's a bit like a weak Basher, a weak Alika A3, where you would basically AoE and then you get a chance to put skills on cooldown. It's very high RNG. It is a 3-turn cooldown, but it's 50% chance, so it's already a 50-50 flip, and it's going to be a random skill for 2 turns, but you don't know which skill that will be. So it could be really powerful or it could be kind of weak. And then we've got a single target block buffs, which is quite good. Although in most cases where you need block buffs, like Hydra particularly, you need AoE. But for a single target boss who does buffs, could be quite good. As a rare, that's actually not too trash. Obviously, if she kills someone, she gets like this perfect veil. I think for some secret rooms, she might have a lot of potential viability in a reflex set. With this A3 being a 3-turn cooldown, can you get it up all the time nearly and keep the skills off the enemies that are going to do a lot of damage to you in those like rare secret rooms that you've got up. So potentially an interesting option for that. We've got it rated as 2.5. It is a rare. If you pick it early, you're probably not going to invest too much into it either because you've already got your starter. You're going to be wanting to pick some of your epics up. You're going to be wanting to put them into your focus of like upgrading to rank 6. But overall, 2.5, an interesting epic that could be quite good for Doom Tower Secret Rooms late game. Early game, probably just food and food for the fusion. So there you go, guys. That is the end of the review of this faction. I know that there's another epic that I may not have covered yesterday called Lady Annabelle, which, to be honest, I probably should cover, but I'm going to cover that in the patch notes breakdown that I'll probably do later on this week when the patch drops tomorrow. I'll be honest, I don't think Lady Annabelle is any use whatsoever. I've heard some people say that you can use it for Bommel because she's got Burangiri's passive, but it feels like we ran out of ideas to make any more new champions, and we thought, hey, we need to release some sort of Halloween-ish champion, I guess, and we took Burangiri's passive, we took Mother Sibel's A3, and we put them together and made a really kind of rubbishy, pointless champion. I don't really think Annabelle is any good whatsoever. I would be vaulting her and even potentially not even keeping her if I pulled her. But that being said, I hope that was like kind of a good review. These videos have been quite a lot longer than I thought because I've gone into a bit more detail around the champion. I can't wait to get my hands on some of these Sylvan Watchers. I really wish I had the test server to be messing around with different things and creating different cool comps, especially, you know, that white Dryad Nia. I think there's so many possibilities. But let's pray that my shard luck continues as good as it has last time. And I know that there is a ×10 for that sort of green Ghost Rider this weekend. I'm going to be pulling for that because I really want that champion. I think it is the best Hex champion. But until then, if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content coming from us, please subscribe to our channel. That'll come straight into your feed. And I will catch you in the next video.